Welcome to the Dripping in Black podcast, where we celebrate Black excellence throughout the Black diaspora. Here's your host, David V. Lewis.
What's up, good people all across the world? It is the Dripping in Black podcast. I am your host, David V. Lewis. And per usual, we have another fantastic guest. We celebrate Black excellence through the stories of our guest. Today's guest is the incomparable Satori Shakoor. Satori, say hello to the world.
Well, hello world, how are you? I thank David and Sean for the invitation to be on the show, particularly celebrating Black excellence. I'm thrilled to know that who I am and what I do with my team in the world is regarded as Black excellence by someone. So thank you very much, Dripping in Black.
Yes, so let's just begin a little bit before we get into the Twisted Storytellers, right? We know you're known for the Secret Society of Twisted Storytellers, but before we jump into that, I'm curious about who is Satori Shakoor? Like, what's your background? Where are you from? That kind of thing. Tell the world about that.
Satori Shakoor is a human being, an artist. I'm born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. I have lived, though, in different places in the United States, New York, Honolulu, Hawaii, wow, Los Angeles. And I've also lived in Toronto, Canada, before coming back to Detroit. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I'm curious about the world and human beings, and I live a life of doing what I love to do, yeah, whatever that might be, as I live through the stages of my life.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I've known you from a distance as a patron of the Secret Society of Twisted Storytellers. And I've been to several of the shows. And so when I think of you, I think of an entertainer. So I was looking at the website and it says storyteller, writer, social entrepreneur. But I was thinking, where's the dancer? Where's the singer? Where's the comedian at? Because I see that as well. So I'm curious, what got you into entertainment?
The violin.
Hmm.
Yeah, the violin. I was introduced to the violin in the second grade, and it never occurred to me that playing the violin was a possibility for me. But as soon as I was introduced to the violin, I became very passionate about learning how to play. And and by the time I went to college, I was playing in 4 orchestras and on records that were coming out of Motown. And when I majored in music in college, I decided to major in vocal music. So the violin obviously led me to being trained classically, and then becoming professional, doing gigs for Motown, and then pursuing singing, because I always liked to sing and act. So the singing led me to acting led me to going to different places in the world, and then that led me to stand-up comedy, and stand-up comedy led me to storytelling. Yeah. And so it's just been a journey, and I guess all of those, there's an entertainer in all of that.
Yep. So you also say, I am a midwife of storytellers.
Right, yes. Right.
Explain that quote for me.
Well, anybody who's living and alive has a story to tell, many stories. But everyone has a story that a journey that they've taken that when shared with one other person or a million other people can make a profound difference in that other person's listening in life. So in creating this platform, which we have a global mission to connect humanity, heal and transform community, and to provide an uplifting, thought-provoking, soul-cleansing entertainment experience through the art and craft of storytelling, I've discovered that even though everyone has a story, everyone doesn't believe that they have a story that's powerful and will make a difference. And on top of that, everyone does not know how to tell a story. Storytelling is a craft. At the highest level, it's an art form. And it is an intentional act. So I pull the story out. I birth the story in people, whether that means I have to work with them on the craft, or I have to let them know, in a way, support them in knowing that they have a powerful story to tell, and support them in gaining the confidence to tell it, because it is scary to be vulnerable. But storytelling is the most effective delivery system of information and ideas. And if you can learn the craft, then you can rule the world. As one Hopi Native American saying, if you can tell this, he who tells a story rules the world. And we can see that now in our current politics, with the current narrative out there. It's like there's a story out there that that Donald Trump won by a landslide. And that's the competing story with the facts that Joe Biden won the election. But many people believe the other story. So facts don't matter as much as who can tell the better story. So.
Wow. Yeah, mouthful there. This is the Dripping in Black podcast, and what we focus on is stories told by Black people of Black excellence, because we don't feel it's enough of that. And so it's challenging that narrative that we hear all of the time, right? And so the Twisted Storytellers, the secret society of twisted storytellers. Let's talk a little bit about that. We can't reveal too much because it is a secret society, but let's get into that.
Okay.
So it's both an experience and it's both a nonprofit organization, right?
Yeah.
Amongst other things.
We have the Secret Society of Twisted Storytellers, which is my production company, and which is the title of our events and our brand name. And then we have the Society for the Reinstitutionalization of Storytelling, which is the nonprofit organization that offsets the cost of our work in the world. Our live events primarily.
And so, like I said, I've been a patron quite a few times, and it's quite the experience. Again, it's a secret society, so I won't reveal too much of it, but it's just a great time for grown folks to get out. So I'm curious about how COVID has impacted the secret society.
First of all, thank you for your support in coming and being present at our shows and enjoying yourself. Obviously, COVID has had a major impact on our shows because they're live and they're in the General Motors Theater of the Charles Wright Museum of African American History. So we are not, we're respecting and practicing social distancing, so we can't gather live. So so we've forwarded our mission and continue our mission by doing virtual shows. So we've done July, September, October. We've done 4 virtual shows. No, 5. We started back in June doing virtual shows, and our next show will be in February, Love Story. So we're continuing our mission. We just are not in the theater.
So it's still good content available out there, right? And you have a YouTube page where there's a lot of older content from,
And
from
new,
years
and
past.
the new content that we're generating via the virtual shows.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So people can still get their fix.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, I was at one of the shows and there was this talk about the Twisted Society overseas. So let's talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that.
Yeah, well, because we live stream our events and people can watch it. There was a gentleman, his name is Joe Washington. He is with the he's a peacekeeper with the United Nations. And he'd been watching our shows, and it captured his imagination. And he brought me over there to Utrecht, the Netherlands, to help him mount the Secret Society of Twisted Storytellers Europe edition. And they produced 4 shows under our brand name. And now he's producing his own shows under his own name. I think they did a show last Sunday. They postponed because his wife had gotten quite ill. And so they started back, I believe it was last Sunday. But they wanted to use storytelling to address issues of racism. There were a lot of refugees there, Syrian refugees, Somalian refugees, and they wanted to come together and share stories. And it was an amazing experience for me to see our brand travel that far. But we do have a global mission, and it was amazing to go to Utrecht, and we also went to The Hague, and we went to Amsterdam, and I met folks that taught storytelling in Amsterdam and also in The Hague. And it was an amazing experience. It was wonderful to have the show inside of a sawmill. They have a lot of catered events in there, and with the windmill and a farm animals wandering around. And it was great to meet the people and hang out in the community spaces that Joe took me around. I mean, we literally landed, and there's, I think, 7 hours ahead or 6 hours ahead of us, and we literally landed, took the train in, and Joe, we were just walking around till our Airbnb was ready, and that was hours. And then the next day he had activities, and then finally I had to say, Joe, I need sleep. I need 2 days. I need to lay down and rest. Oh, okay. So yeah, and so it was great.
Yeah. Yeah. So truth in the fact that stories are all over the world and they can impact people wherever we are, right? And so I have couple of questions that I ask each guest. Doing great things with the Twisted Society, right? The Secret Society of Twisted Storytellers, right?
Yeah.
If you could snap your finger and do the next level of that, what would that be? What would that look like?
The next level we've already gone to. We're waiting for the launch, which is to stream the stories globally. We were approached by a company called Binge Now, and they are like a Netflix, but they distribute brands. So we have our own website, our own app. People can download it and watch the storytellers tell their story anywhere in the world that you have a digital device. So that's the next. I've always wanted it to go to television, or as we call television now, streaming. Yeah. So people can see the show, see the storytellers. Yeah.
Yeah. Great opportunity to reach the world through those stories, right?
Yes.
All right. And so kind of our closing question is, have you ever been on the cover of a magazine?
I have, yes.
Uh, would you be willing to share what magazine it was?
There's a magazine in Toronto called Now Magazine. I was on the cover of Now Magazine. I was, have I been on other covers? I've probably been on other covers, but I can't remember them. But Now Magazine is like LA Weekly, like Metro Times, but it's a magazine in Toronto, and
Okay.
I was on the cover of that
Well,
as a comedian.
As a guest for us, we're going to place you on our episode of the Dripping in Black magazine for your episode. So,
well, thank you very much. I'm honored.
Yeah, the pleasure is all ours. So, Ms. Shakoor, we want to thank you for coming out to the Dripping in Black podcast. We want to give you the opportunity to drop any social media that you want to share for this episode. So go ahead and share that.
You can visit our website at twistedtellers.org, twistedtellers.org, and you can check out my website, SatoriShakoor.com. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Yeah. So again, our thanks for coming out, and we look forward to seeing more and more shows of the Secret Society of Twisted Storytellers.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me. Good night. Good night, Sean. Bye-bye.
Up next, The Last Drip.
A Dripping in Black thanks to the midwife of storytelling, the dynamic Satori Shakoor, for gracing us with her presence. She is truly one of our jewels of the Motor City. As she mentioned in our conversation, the Secret Society of Twisted Storytellers has met the challenge presented by COVID by going virtual. The next virtual event for the Secret Society of Twisted Storytellers will be on February 19th, 2021. Tickets are available for virtual events at www.twistedtellers.org/events. I encourage all of our viewers and listeners to check it out. It is truly a great time. But now we have reached the final segment of our podcast called The Last Drip. The Last Drip is the last opportunity for us to squeeze in a bit more of Black excellence before we leave you. In this final segment, we highlight a common thread between our guests and our vast and rich African American history. For this episode, we'll dive deeper into our history of storytelling, where we learn about Dr. Catherine Lawson Morgan. Dr. Morgan was born in Philadelphia in 1919. Her childhood, teenage years, and years of early adulthood spanned from the Roaring '20s through the Great Depression of the 1930s, as well as the World War II era of the 1940s. In 1952, she earned a bachelor's degree from the great Howard University. From the University of Pennsylvania, she would earn a master's degree and PhD in folklore in 1968 and 1970, respectively. She was among the first African Americans to earn a PhD in folklore. African American folklore is an important aspect of our culture. It enables us to chronicle our past and preserve our traditions, customs, and stories. It's one of the things that we've used to counter being in oppressive lands where they try to deny us our history and our culture. Dr. Morgan taught courses at the University of Delaware, Newark, Bryn Mawr College, Haverford College, as well as the University of California, Berkeley, before becoming the first African American professor at Swarthmore College in Pennsylvania in 1970. In 1980, Catherine published the first work of African American family folklore by a folklorist entitled Children of Strangers, The Stories of a Black Family. This book
emphasizes the importance of storytelling as a mechanism for safeguarding family history and truth. This book is credited with expanding the concept of who conveys African American folklore and what African American folklore might be. During Dr. Morgan's distinguished 25-year career at Swarthmore, she taught courses in folk life, oral history, and folk history before retiring in 1995 with the high honor of Sarah Lawrence Lightfoot Professor Emerita of History. Dr. Morgan has been described as wise, charismatic, dynamic, generous, and revered. On the Secret Society of Twisted Storytellers website, you can find this quote, "Transforming lives, one story at a time." Dr. Catherine Morgan, too, believed in the transformative properties of storytelling. Dr. Morgan was once heard saying the following to some of her colleagues, quote,
"Well, one of the first things I tell my students is to go home, to look to your family, to the stories that we were told as children. They're the most important stories in the world because of the fact that everybody is educated at home before they step foot in school, you see. And to me, it was just a matter of stories, because that's the way we were taught."
For more on this episode's last drip, Dr. Catherine Lawson Morgan, check out Inquirer.com, NotableFolkloristOfColor.org, Swarthmore.edu, and FolkloreProject.org. My thanks to each site for the knowledge. There's also a great short video that can be found at FolkloreProject.org entitled Catherine Morgan Storytellers that I encourage you all to check out in your leisure. Good people, get up on the vast, powerful, and rich African American history. It is available for those who seek it. And as always, until next time, be good, be good, be good. It is a choice.
You have just experienced a Dripping in Black production.